Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new IDontWorkHereLady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled, Don't Hold a Meeting in the Soda Aisle. I live in an upper-middle-class suburb of NYC. Some of the people in my town are a bit entitled. Anyway, on to the story. When I work from home I dress very casually, basically sweats, and I don't bother shaving. I find weekdays to go shopping to be the best as the store is not too crowded. I wanted to get some diet soda for the weekend, and a well-dressed late 20s, early 30s man was on his phone, standing in front of the soda I wanted. I said excuse me, and he rolled his eyes and said, just because I'm wearing a suit and talking business on the phone doesn't mean I work here. I replied, I just need to get what you're blocking. He huffed, mumbled something about lazy people who don't have a job to whoever he was speaking to, and moved over. Now, if that was the end of the story I wouldn't have bothered posting, but of course it's not. I heard him mention a type of case in our local state courthouse. Next town over is the county seat, in the same practice area my wife and I practiced in when we were practicing law. I closed her firm when she passed, just wasn't the same. Our county is small enough so that if you're practicing for a few years, you know most of the lawyers and judges in your area of law. Still a little annoyed from our interaction, I decided to play a bluff. I asked, are you talking about type of case in front of Judge X? Startled, he replied, why do you want to know? My response, it sounds like the case my wife and I are opposing counsel on in front of Judge X in courtroom 123 next week. Dude turned very white very fast. He was indeed talking about a case that was going to be in front of Judge X next week. Fortunately for him, I remembered our case was the following week to let him know that he hadn't just royally messed up, followed with a suggestion he may not want to have those type of conversations where he can be overheard. Moral of the story, don't have a confidential conversation in public, and don't underestimate some slob dressed in sweats. The next story is titled, Old Granny Mistakes Me for a Gardener. A few weeks ago I was working the lawn in my new house. I had just moved in with my wife and we were really working hard to make the place homey. I was already finishing up the lawn when I saw an old granny slowly walking towards me. I turned off my lawn trimmer so I could say hello and not have anything fly towards her. When she came up she kindly asked me, excuse me, how much do you charge per lawn? I looked at her a bit confused, but after remembering my attire, I had a hat, some gloves and safety glasses on, and since I was new in the neighborhood I understood that she had mistaken me for a gardener. I looked at her and said, hello, how can I help you, ma'am? She kindly told me that she wanted her lawn mowed, but she doesn't have much money as she lives alone, and if I was willing to take $20 for the work. I looked at her place and saw that the lawn in question was incredibly out of control, as if it wasn't mowed in months, and since it was a small area I told the kind granny, don't worry ma'am, I will take care of it. The deed took me almost 20 minutes to finish mowing and an extra 10 to take the trimmings and clean the surrounding area. After I was done, she came out of her small house with a tall glass of water which I accepted gladly and proceeded to hand me the money. That is when I said, don't worry about that ma'am, I am not a gardener, I am actually your new neighbor. I did it because I wanted to, not because of the money. She immediately apologized for the confusion and told me she was ashamed to ask me something like that. I told her to not worry about that and that it was something I did out of the bottom of my heart, and if she needed help with her lawn to please call me again. She began to cry and thank me profoundly and began to tell me her story. Turns out that she was living alone for a while and that her husband died a few months ago and she didn't have anyone to help her as all her children were living in the US. After the tale she thanked me again and we went our separate ways. Now, every time I help her with her lawn she always gives me a bag of fruit from her mango trees or banana trees and a tall glass of water. The next story is titled, Oh, is it because he's black? This happened this past weekend. So should really post this as I was a bit late to the main event, but he doesn't read it, so I'm posting from my perspective, memory. And I went to the big orange home improvement store. We were in the garden section looking for some lawn care products. Is very particular about the lawn and has done a great job researching products to bring life back to our lawn. After some in-depth discussion, he picks out some grass seed and tosses it into the cart. I saw some houseplants over in the distance I wanted to check out, so I leave him there to continue looking and take the cart with me. Now, the houseplants are not far away from the lawn care products. So is still within my line of sight, just not within speaking distance. I'm not even over there for 2 minutes when I look up in response to hearing So and some guy getting loud. I mosey back over and give So a look, asking what's going on. The guy is upset because he saw So help me pick out grass seed but won't help him. So says the obvious, I don't work here, but the guy is having none of it. Guy says he knows So works there, he saw So help me. He then goes on to say that maybe if he was a woman, So would be more interested in helping him. So says, whoa. That's not it at all, I really don't work here. I finally speak up and say, yeah, he doesn't work here, he's my So. We're here shopping together. The guy scoffed and shook his head in disbelief and states that So is an employee. We try to explain it to him again, but he refuses to listen and keeps on demanding service from So and a manager. You guys know how this part goes. Finally, something inside me clicks and I look at the guy and ask him, oh, is it because he's black? You believe he is an employee and not my So because he's black? Reddit, I'm pumpkin spice latte white. So is a delicious shade of caramel. The guy was gaping like a fish, turning red, and suddenly dead quiet as the realization washes over him. Publicly calling out someone's racism will do that to you. I then grab SO's hand, hold up my lovely engagement ring to the guy's face and reiterate that we were together, then lay a big kiss on So. Not another word was exchanged while we turned and walked off to the registers hand in hand. The next story is titled, You Don't Work Here? Neither do I. It's been 10 years since I last did retail, though I spent a decent chunk of the prior 25 years in it. I'm used to being mistaken for an employee. My reactions generally reflect their actions. Polite request equals polite response and rude equals rude. Hardly anyone I have ever encountered persisted to the reporting you to supervisor part. But Monday I was at the Target in the next town over. I hadn't tidied anything while shopping. I tend to fold unfolded shirts out of habit when I am browsing women's clothing. Understandably, people see this and think, employee. I cut 'em some slack. I was wearing business casual in burgundy slacks, black top and heels, looking absolutely nothing like a Target employee. I'm standing in the feminine hygiene aisle, marveling at all the ways pads and tampons have just exploded in variety over the past few decades and contemplating my various options in a humorous series of texts to my husband. Oblivious to the world around me, as usual. Suddenly my upper arm is grabbed hard and this lady, about my age, 51, says, I've been trying to get your attention for a while now. Put down your phone and help me. I can't find the cat food. Grabbing me is not allowed, so my response begins with yanking my arm away and saying, touch me again and your ass'll be on the ground, got it? I don't work here, go find someone else. She continues to demand my help. I insist I don't work here. She insists I do, and finally I just turn and walk away. And she shouts after me, I'd expect this from some kid, but you are old enough to know better. I'm going to find your manager. And snap went something in my mind. I whirl around, stalk over to her, wag my finger in her face and demand she go back in the back and get me the larger sized tub of KY jelly. There is none out here and I need it now. I find bringing sex into a conversation makes people pay attention to what I am saying. She looks shocked and appalled as I say, and where are the Magnum condoms? Go find me those and the KY jelly. She tells me not to play games with her, she knows I work here and she's going to get me fired. And I just grin and say something I've always wanted to, I know the owner. I'm going to get you and your manager fired if you don't find me my KY jelly. She shouts that she doesn't work here and I look her in the eye and state calmly, neither do I, and stare until she looks away and starts heading down the aisle. Not sure what the pharmacy techs thought about two middle-aged ladies, standing in the middle of the feminine hygiene aisle of Target, shouting about KY jelly and threatening to have one another fired from a place neither of them worked, but I hope they found it as entertaining as I did. The next story is titled, I'm sorry you confused my black shirt and cargo shorts for an orange smock. At Home Depot today picking up some flooring. A middle-aged lady approaches me asking if I can help her get something off a top shelf. I am 6 feet 4 inches and get asked this a lot no matter where I go. It's no big deal. I say sure and follow her further down the aisle. She points to a stack of tile on the very top shelf. I tell her that there is no possible way for me to get that and the store would need to get one of those lifter things for her. She thanks me and I go on my way. Or so I thought. A couple of minutes later I am back in the aisle I was previously in, loading wood laminate into my cart, and I hear a loud "Excuse me" from behind me. Guess who found me again? Her. Are you going to help me or not? Me. Ma'am, I have my own stuff to load. Find an employee to help you. They are walking around, or you can go to the front desk. Her. Why should I find someone else when you're already helping me? It's at this point I realize she thinks I'm an employee. Me. Ma'am, do you think I'm an employee? I don't work here. Her. If you don't work here then why were you helping me? Me. Because you asked and I don't mind helping. Look at me. I'm wearing a black shirt and cargo shorts. All the employees are wearing an orange smock and pants. Her. As she is walking away, you shouldn't offer to help me if you don't work here. Me calling out to her, I didn't offer. You asked. Cue her flipping me off as she walks away. The next story is titled, Sorry, Wrong Number. My first year of college, I lived in a dorm. It sucked a lot, and so when my friend Paula asked me if I'd like to go in on an apartment with her and her incredibly cute friend Heather, I said heck yes. We each took a utility. Paula had the gas bill, Heather had electric, and I had the phone. I bought a telephone and an answering machine at Leechmere and we recorded a cutesy outgoing message. Within minutes, we had our first call, a guy looking for Abby Auto Rental. I told him he had the wrong number, and hung up. He called back immediately, Abby Auto Rental? Nope, me again. What number are you trying to reach? He read off my new phone number. I said, well, that's the number here, but this is a private residence. He said, well, I guess you're F.ed, because there's a half-page ad for Abby Auto Rental in the yellow pages with that number. Lots of luck. I grabbed the yellow pages and flipped to the car rental section. Sure enough, it was our number. I guess they had gone out of business fairly recently, for the ad to still be included in the phone book. So we changed our cutesy outgoing message to say, sorry, this is not Abby Auto Rental. They are out of business. You've reached Dave, Paula, and Heather. Please leave a message. It made no difference whatsoever. People kept leaving messages for Abby Auto Rental. At the end of the year, Paula and Heather moved out, and Dan and Jorma moved in. Jorma used to enjoy messing with the callers. He would take down their credit card number and make a reservation, promising free delivery, just as it said in the ad. Then he would go off to class. When the reservation time rolled around, the customer would call back, furious at the absence of their rental car, and frequently I would be the one to answer the phone. Dave, hello? Irate Customer, where the hell is my car? Dave, sorry, Abby Auto Rental went out of business 2 years ago. Irate Customer, what are you talking about? I gave my credit card number to someone this morning. Dave, you must have been talking to the ghost of Mr. Abby. Woo. Irate Customer, I'm coming down there to kick your ass. Dave, okay, see you soon. You have the address from the ad, right? How are you going to get here with no car? Irate Customer, IRRAAAAAAA. When Jorma moved out and Michelle moved in, we decided it was time to change the outgoing message again. We left longer and longer messages, but the calls kept coming. They had phone books. The phone books were 3 years old. Abby Auto Rental must exist. It must. Finally, I went out and bought a longer tape for the outgoing message. I recorded The Gift by the Velvet Underground. This song is 8 minutes and 16 seconds long. The left channel is the band noodling around aimlessly on their guitars, and the right channel is a male voice with a British accent, telling a story about a man who mailed himself to his girlfriend. We told all our friends to just hit the star key to bypass the outgoing message. This, finally, eliminated the car rental messages. I left the answering machine that way, and tried to forget about it. Almost a year later, I came home to a light blinking on the machine. It was the peevish voice of a little old lady, who had clearly listened to the entire story, including the part where the girlfriend uses a sheet metal cutter to open the box, accidentally killing her boyfriend. The message said, "That's a very nice story, but it doesn't help me, I want to rent a car." The next story is titled, "Apparently I'm a doctor." So let's say my name is John Doe. I often get phone calls that go like, "Hey, John," I reply something sensible and they go, "Listen, I have such and such issue with a patient." It's always annoying calls about medical events or colleagues, bear in mind I'm an engineer. So this idiot Dr. John Poe has a name that's almost identical to mine and decided whenever someone annoyed him he gives him the same wrong number, my number. And every other call I get is a "I don't work here" scenario, adding SMS and WhatsApp. I got fed up, found his number and tried contacting him to no avail. I sent him a message with a lawyer who contacted me and knew him personally, and a girl he was dating, to no avail. So I figured I would have some fun. I know for a fact he sees face to face some of these people, so I started interrupting them as they began asking, once I knew they were not patients, and hanging up. I said stuff like, "Sorry, can't talk, I just found out I'm getting a divorce." Some of the excuses I used are "got herpes, I'm in jail." Silly, more or less harmless stuff. Then I ran out of ideas and began saying things to the effect of, "It's not urgent, but I really need to discuss something with you." I wasn't trying to get him into trouble or worry anyone too much, but annoy him. So one day I get a call from John. He wants me to stop, is quite mad, wants me to change numbers. That's not going to happen. That's the last time I heard of John. Kind of miss him actually. The next story is titled, "I eat breakfast at McDonald's, racism ensues." Happened perhaps 15 minutes ago. For context, I'm South Indian, and currently live in a mid-sized German town. I woke up a bit earlier than usual, so figured I'd stop at the McDonald's for some breakfast. I get my food, and I'm sitting at one of the tables by the entrance, and it's pretty early, so I'm also the only customer in the restaurant. I also have my headphones in watching a YouTube video on my iPad. Someone interrupts with a "Good morning," that was odd, seeing as I'm in Germany. Why not Guten Morgen? It's this older woman, perhaps about 50, with an open beer bottle in her hand, not that that's too unusual over here, apart from maybe the time of day, and tells me there's no one at the counter to serve her. When I inform her, in German, that I didn't work there, she refused to believe me. "But you're Indian." So, I asked. "Indians all have crap jobs," she replied. Then she started raising her voice, ranting that since I didn't work at the McDonald's, it followed I didn't work anywhere, and that immigrants were ruining Germany and how the AfD, far-right party, had the right idea. She wasn't done yet though, she saw fit to spit in my tray and told me to lick it. By then a manager had come over, so she'd heard the rant and witnessed the spitting. She asked me if I wanted to call the police. I did, but I also had a job to get to, so I declined. I'm a teacher, and there are exams today and I'd promised a revision class, so if I didn't make it in or was delayed the students would be screwed. I'm not sure how it ended, the manager have acted herself, I'm not sure. She replaced my whole meal gratis, which was nice because I'd pretty much finished, guess I have some snacks for the day. The next story is titled, "No, I won't make you a goddamn sub." Congrats on getting banned from Publix. I used to work in the deli of a Publix down in Florida, which is a fairly large grocery chain in the southeast. The Publix I worked in was fairly close to the Villages, which is the largest retirement community in the country. Probably something in the range of 2/3 RDs of all customers in the store were retirees. There was a larger than average number of rude customers, but there were a few regulars who were really foul-tempered. Of the year or so that I worked there, a 70-ish-year-old woman came in every Sunday and ordered the same thing, a toasted chicken tender sub with shredded pepper jack cheese. She was also the pushiest idiot I've ever had the displeasure of meeting. If there was a line and she was forced to wait, she'd start yelling that we need to hurry up because some of us have places to be, would loudly complain that the service here is getting worse every year, would lean over the counter and snap her fingers at anyone passing by and snap, "Excuse me. I've been waiting for service. Come here." She also had a habit of whistling at people like they were a dog to get their attention. Everyone hated this woman. She never said thank you, always found something wrong with everything you did. "This sub is burnt." There isn't enough cheese. IDIDNT you wash your hands, I don't want that sub, go wash your hands and make me a new one, and never even tried to be polite. Unfortunately Publix has a policy of make it right, so we could never tell her to go duck herself like we so desperately wanted to. Eventually I got fed up with every other guest being a miserable old piece of crap more interested in starting a fight than they were in getting their deli meats, so I quit. 3 days after I quit, I came back into Publix and stopped by the deli to give one of my co-workers his phone charger that I had borrowed. As I turned to leave, that woman stepped out of line and said, "Hey, you work here, don't you? Come take my order." I said, "Sorry, I quit a few days ago, I don't work here anymore." Her, "I just saw you behind the counter talking to someone. If you have time to talk, you have time to help customers." Me, "Sorry, can't help you. They'll be with you soon." I tried to walk away, but she stepped in front of me and grabbed my arm, then pointed her finger in my face and started screaming at me that I was the worst employee she had ever seen, that I always messed up her order, that I should feel lucky to have a job, and that I need to do as she said or she would tell my manager. I yanked my arm out of her grip, told her to go duck herself, then walked over to the customer service counter and told the manager there that there was someone harassing other customers in the deli line. He said he had heard someone shrieking about something and was about to go see what it was. So he and I walked back over to the deli and I pointed her out to the manager. After a short conversation in which he asked her if anything was wrong, she started complaining to him that I was rude and unwilling to help. He told her that I no longer worked here, she was disturbing other customers and had to leave, and wouldn't be welcome back. She left complaining that Publix sucked and she would be calling corporate to file a complaint, and I got a few texts from my old co-workers thanking me for getting rid of her. Glad to help, and see you never, you old hag. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comments.